So the problem in housing in Australia is, well, let's start with the economics. Every property market is a trade-off between capital growth and rental yield. Australia's the best capital growth market in the world, bar none, which means it's the worst rental yield market in the world, bar none. And so the problem with having incredible capital growth is everybody either has too little or too much home equity. The next generation has too little to get their deposit to buy the home, and the prior generation usually has too much of their money tied up in their home, and they need it for other things. It was clear to us that the problem was in a high capital growth market that home equity was the central governing factor in the entire marketplace, and nobody had any way of either creating or liberating home equity. And the reason why we're the best capital growth market in the world, again, let's understand fundamental economics, because this stuff's completely misunderstood, has got very little to do with interest rates, very little to do with negative gearing, very little to do with supply side problems, much as they do exist, and every other thing that gallons of newspaper ink is wasted on every day. The reason we have the best capital growth market in the world is incredibly simple, and it doesn't change in 100 years. We have the second highest population growth rate in the world, and we cram all those people into three major urban centres. And so the value of scarce suburban land has been doubling every 8 years for a century.
Yeah.
Couldn't be simpler. As Mark Twain would say, they're not making any more land, right? So the whole driver of the entire system is land value, and that's just not widely understood. So that's the economics. Now let's look at it from a social lens, right? And part of our business manages 4,000 rental properties. I think we do it better than anyone else in the country, and certainly we're probably the only people who even measure tenant satisfaction, let alone have a plus 67 NPS with our tenants. So we really care about. But there's no way in the private rental market you can make it work for tenants. Housing needs one thing: dignified, secure housing. Whether you're a tenant or whether you're an owner-occupier, and the best way to have dignified, secure housing is to be an owner-occupier. If you can't have that, you need dignified, secure housing in tenancy, as you have in Northern Europe, right, and other forms of institutional housing. So the social problem we're trying to solve is dignified, secure housing. The business problem but opportunity is that home equity in a high capital growth market is the whole game. And so what we've gradually realised is that the best way to invest in property is to invest in home equity, but not through individual properties, through a fund structure. And if that fund then takes its money to create dignified, secure housing solutions, whether that's into owner-occupiership through home equity, or in future, we're not doing this yet, through institutional ownership of rental property, so that people can actually have a lifetime dignified, secure rental, so they may not own the property, but it's actually their home, then that's what we've got to do to restructure the Australian housing landscape, lock, stock and barrel. And this is the only country in the civilised world that doesn't have a housing fund industry. Mine